I had a couple of days this week that were more heavily focused on conversation than usual, and days when I was more actively listening than usual, which really illustrated the power of listening to open up conversations. On Thursday this week, I spent some time with Laura Overton from Towards Maturity. Set up a couple of meetings with people I knew who had done the Towards Maturity benchmark, and she was curious to find out a bit more about them. They'd ended up quite high in the Towards Maturity index. She was curious to learn more about these two people. And now these are people I have both known for a number of years, probably 7 or 8 years. And in both of those conversations, Laura just really brilliantly opened up the space for them to talk. She basically said to them, I'm interested in hearing your story. I want to know more about how you think, how you approach your work. And she just gave them the space to talk. So for one of the individuals we spoke to, I was surprised to really learn how his mind ticks. And one thing I noticed was that he refers to a lot of external research and external models, including those from outside of his core field. So he spoke about using the 6 hats model to carry on a series of conversations with stakeholders internally to explore what was and wasn't working well and where the possibilities might be with a particular program. He talked about applying Maslow to program design. He talked about what he's learning about the affective domain and emotions and how that impacts learning, drawing on some aspects of psychological research. He talked about the basics around adult learning principles from Knowles and the value he found in those. And he was really grounded in this kind of evidence base, but it was clear that it's a really fluid flow for him in terms of where he gets his ideas from and the connections he's making. It was just fascinating. Later on that day, we had an opportunity to speak to someone else that I've now worked with in 2 organisations. And he went right back to the start of his career and spoke about how he'd started his career in theatre, acting, writing, directing, and then someone had asked him to start teaching in theatre. Then when he got into that, he really connected with practically what was it that he knew, what had he done, what had he wished that someone had shared with him early in his career. And the other thing he did, because coaching was part of what he needed to do there, was he went out and talked to a lot of sports coaches and learnt from them and watched how people were being coached. So he took something that was a little out of his field and he brought that into the space. Then he spoke about going to another organisation which wasn't theatre, it was in the tourism industry, and how he was able to pick up things he knew about theatre and productions in theatre and apply them to the whole tourist experience, and using that to create some of the drama of theatre, and also as some of his directing skills to engage differently with the people he was working with as learners. So to treat them almost as actors in their own play, and get them engaged with how the play should play out, how the script should read, how the plot should be interpreted. So we had this very active approach to engagement of people in their learning based on what he'd taken from theatre. And I just thought that was super fascinating to see this, these connections between different fields based on his background and experience. And I felt really blessed to spend that time with Laura and to watch the way she listened and her curiosity and to feed into that. And that's something I'm really conscious of doing more of actively, of being in that receiving mode, because it was a fascinating experience.